Balance may be another word for life. In every moment in our bodies, there is a continual push and pull between the creative and the destructive forces of nature. We cannot say one is better than the other, but when both are in perfect balance, we remain in a state of good health. In a healthy body, there is a tight balance between newly formed cells, the young cells, and those that are old and dying. Too many old and dying cells, and we call it old age. On the contrary, when some of the cells of the body turn young and immortal, we also call it cancer. Everything in the body is well regulated through natural mechanisms, and these mechanisms promote a balance between the growth and the destruction of the cells of the body. Luckily, nature has automated most of these processes for us. The temperature of the body, for instance, is kept in a very narrow band, too hot or too cold, and it impacts the functioning of the cells. The body is in a perfect balance between an acidic environment and an alkaline state. On a scale between 0 and 14, 0 being highly acidic and alkaline state being 14, the body is right in the middle. Its pH is 7.4. Even our breath is always in balance between inhalation and exhalation. Such balance exists in wider nature as well. As the earth rotates around the sun, it balances itself around an imaginary axis. A little wobble one way or the other, life as we know it may not even exist. There is a balance between the length of the day and that of the night. In winter, as days get shorter, nights get longer, and the opposite happens in the summer. There are so many other such examples we can find in the world around us. The only place where the helping hand of nature does not enter and interfere is the mind. It is given to us as our playground, and it is up to us to set up the rules of the game. The conscious mind is under our direct control. Thoughts play a key role in maintaining a healthy mind. Creative and destructive forces are in play in the mind as well. We can harness these forces and establish harmony and balance in the mind. And this is crucial if we want to experience and maintain happiness at all times in our lives. In nature, balance is interdependent on so many other factors. But the good news is that we can establish a steady, balanced, happy state of mind that is completely independent of the external world. For this, thoughts play a crucial role, and if we know how to balance their energies. Some thoughts are heavy and sink deep into the mind, while others are light and airy and disappear very quickly. From an energy standpoint, thoughts are of 5 types. Number 1, thoughts that are earthy and heavy. Number 2, thoughts that are watery and fluid. Number 3, thoughts that are fiery and destructive. Number 4, thoughts that are airy and light. And number 5, thoughts resemble all-encompassing space. Let's first take the first type, which is thoughts that have an earthy nature. Earthy and heavy thoughts ground us in a dense field of emotions. These thoughts have very specific content. A good example is negative thoughts. They're earthy, and it is difficult to dig them out and get rid of them. If we were to excavate a piece of land, let's say, we can't do it with our bare fingers. We need heavy equipment to get it out. Likewise, with heavy negative thoughts, we can't just wish them away or think our way out of them. For example, vigorous exercise may be a good way to dissipate the energy of dense, heavy, earthy, negative thoughts. The dense nature of earthy thoughts can turn them into obstructions. Often, negative thoughts do this to us. We see happiness just around the corner, the light at the end of the tunnel, but it becomes very difficult to bridge that gap and overcome negativity. The earthy nature of thoughts has its benefits as well. The grounding quality gives us a strong foundation on which we can build upon. A strong and unshakable will to achieve something special. needs the earthy and grounding quality of thoughts to achieve the desired result. Earthy thoughts help us keep our focus on one goal or a specific direction in which we desire to direct our lives. If we harbor negative thoughts, which is we can avoid in some certain circumstances, their earthy nature can be transferred to our willpower, by which we strengthen our will. Often we see that it takes a great force of will to pull ourselves out of negativity. If we are careful not to dissipate that energy that we transfer to willpower as it strengthens, that power becomes an extremely useful tool in the mind's toolbox. Next, let's look at the watery type of thoughts. By its very nature, water is fluid and it seeks to flow. Thoughts that cannot remain stationary have the nature of water. They flow into the conscious mind and they flow out just as fast. Desires are an example of watery thoughts. Just as if there's too much water, they will be flooding, or if there's too little water, there will be a drought. Too many desires and the mind gets overwhelmed and flooded. Life becomes unpleasant, a lot of unfulfilled desires. Too little desires and we can't live a happy and comfortable life. For that, there needs to be some basic and essential desires. Just as a river ultimately finds its way into the sea and disappears, in a natural course, thoughts linked to our desires will ultimately flow out and disappear. Desires that were once prominent a few years ago may not be in existence today. What we may have desired as a child is different from what we desire as an adult. Desires that we have today may not mean much in the coming days or coming years. Just as we can gently nudge and modify the course of a river and harness its water as a resource for watering farmland, generating power, and so on, we can use the energy of thoughts that have a watery nature. Such thoughts are flexible and easier to direct than dense, earthy thoughts. For example, we can set a goal and let the watery nature of desire take us towards that goal we set. Now let's talk about thoughts that have a fiery nature. Fiery thoughts are destructive. Their energies are potent and difficult to handle. Anger and greed are obvious examples of such fiery thoughts. If there's an excess of anger and greed, it can burn the entire mind down to ashes in no time. Relationships that perhaps may have taken decades to nurture and build can be destroyed in an instant during an angry outburst. The destructive power of thoughts must be handled very carefully, just as we handle fire. Fire is essential for us. We cook our food, heat our homes, and so on, but we keep it under our control at all times. Likewise, the fiery nature of thoughts must be under our direct control at all times. We can use it to our benefit if we control it. Merely harboring desire is not enough. It's like cold, uncooked food. Unless we provide heat and fire and cook the food, it may not be digested easily by the body. Likewise, when the fiery nature of thoughts meets a desire, that spark creates a burning desire which provides the fuel to take the rest of the mind along towards the goal. Like fire, thoughts that can potentially burn the mind must be kept under wraps, under check, and under our conscious control at all times. Then it becomes possible to selectively use this potent force to fire up and realize all our beneficial desires. Next, coming to thoughts which have an airy nature. Some thoughts are so fleeting that we cannot hold them, even for a moment in our conscious awareness. It's like trying to grab and hold air. Before we know it, they are gone. But we may be left with the essence of their contents if you pay attention. Generally, new ideas come through such thoughts. To grab those new ideas and inspirations, it requires us to be attentive and aware at all times. These airy thoughts are unpredictable and can come at any moment before quickly disappearing right before our eyes. Having a notepad or a note-taking app on a phone can be handy to capture some of these insightful ideas that come through these thoughts, and then we can take our time and to build upon these ideas. The air we breathe does not force its way into our lungs. It is left to the physical body to suck in air and extract the life-giving essence from it. Likewise, when ideas come to us through these thoughts, they don't force their way into our memory. We will have to extract the information, store it for later use. These airy thoughts are extremely useful for inventors, scientists, and anyone who wishes to discover something new. Finally, what are the thoughts that resemble all-encompassing space? Good examples of such thoughts are love and compassion. These are universal qualities and are like space. Just as space is everywhere, love and compassion is everywhere. They are either there or not there. There is no selectivity or preference. Space remains whether we acknowledge its presence or not. In the same manner, love and compassion do not depend on another person reciprocating. It's like sunlight that continually rains upon the earth. There is nothing we can offer the sun in return for its light except gratitude. With love and compassion, it's the same. Once love and compassion enter the space of the mind, every thought gets saturated with these qualities, just like light falling upon the earth, and we begin to keep thoughts of the welfare of humanity with us at all times when we harbor love and compassion. In order to be happy and successful in the world, the right balance of all these 5 thought types is essential. A desire to achieve or become something, when backed by a strong will and driven by a fiery zeal, using new innovative ideas, all with the attitude of giving something back to the world with love and compassion, not expecting a result, results in success and happiness in everything we set out to do. There is no need for these 5 types of thoughts to be in equal proportion for the mind to experience a perfect balance. The watery type is usually predominant in most people, as we know that desires are the main content of many of our thoughts. Just as the body is 2/3 water, 1/3 solid, we can apportion 2/3 of our thoughts to desire. Let's say we limit it to one major desire, which we define as our life purpose. That can take up 2/3 of the mind's energy. It will satisfy the mind's habit of harboring desire. In the remaining 1/3, we can add in willpower, fire to succeed, bring in new ideas, along with thinking of the big picture, our place in the world, through the lens of love and compassion for others. Then the mind will be satisfied, and we will also cater to a desire while we produce something useful for the world. We can thus achieve balance inside and outside by balancing the mind. Every moment gives us an opportunity to reassess and rebalance the mind. Without judgment or regret, if we become aware of our thoughts at any given moment, we will likely see one or more of these 5 thought types in motion. Just as water settles and becomes still when left undisturbed, the mind also settles and balances itself if we spend even a few moments each day observing the mind and the flow of thoughts without judgment. A balanced mind becomes a powerful mind, and it can take us safely through any difficulty, such as the crisis humanity is facing today with the COVID-19 situation.